Hi, Chris. Thanks for helping with my project. I was wondering if you could say a little bit about yourself.
My name is Chris Hayden. Work as a associate professor in information technology in college in Michigan. I've worked with Nathan in the past, a long time ago at T1, but that's about it.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. It's like 97,
Yeah, it was.
96 maybe?
Yeah, exactly. With Chuck and everyone else and Dan and Chris Cutts. So
And
anyway,
I remember like inline. We had to go and put all the headers and footers on the little
yeah,
half worlds.
yes. It's been a while, yes.
And so can you talk a little bit about your career from those days till now? Like how'd you become a professor?
Well, I worked from after I left T1. My wife and I moved to Michigan to come back home, and I think the last job I was doing at T1 was ASP development or something like that. Then I moved up to a company, Michigan-based company, and worked in HTML and ASP development called Compaq was where I worked at CompuWare for too many close names there for about 3 years, and then went on to an advertising company working with databases and QA. So I moved a little bit around. Did that for about, I think it was 7 years, and then worked at Oracle for about 9 years remotely, doing data work, more data work, analytics work, stuff like that. And then started on a PhD program somewhere in that mix because I just wanted to do some teaching later on. Never thought I'd be doing it full time like I am now, but started that 2 years ago. So, 23, 25 years of IT stuff, and just doing this now, working on teaching grad classes and getting into my dissertation phase pretty soon here. So
Well, that's awesome. What's your area of focus?
for the research area is customer sentiment analysis is the main fact, and that's what I'm trying to look at how its impact is on the auto industry, since there's a little bit of that left up here. So yeah, but that's about it. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And how about hobbies and outside of work interest?
Outside of work, with my family, we do some stuff outside with we have 3 dogs. Like to go hiking. And then we have some chickens too, since we live in the country. So quite a few chickens.
That's awesome. That's actually one of my dreams is to get some chickens.
Yes, they're
Any
fun.
and they are fun. Okay, so you're like keep going. Don't not turn around and go back.
No, we've had them for about 7 years, and some of them we call them in their retirement age, so they're not laying as much as they used to, but they're still around for entertainment. So, so they're fun though.
Oh,
It's away from computers is a nice thing, and that's one of the ways to do it.
what do you recommend to get started with chickens?
With like how many or what type? I
Are
said brown. Oh, go ahead.
like I mean, do you just go to the feed store and buy some
Yeah, if
chicks
you,
and
yeah, that's one way you can. It sounds kind of funny, but you can buy them online and they're delivered to your local post office. You can get that. But we went to a TSC, Tractor Supply Company store. They're all over the country. I'm sure there's plenty of them down there. But bought them and then raised them in a little brooding box, they call them, for about probably around 2 months, and then put them into a coop and outside type of a setup so they could just start growing and trying to go from there. But it's we started with way too many, but start with, and then don't get if you get roosters, give them away. they're annoying, but it's fun. So
yeah, the few articles I read said that roosters make a lot of noise and annoy your
yeah,
hens, and they don't produce eggs. So
they don't. They're pretty much freeloaders, but they're entertaining because we hatched a few of our own too, and one of them, the roosters, we have 3 roosters, and no one will take them, but that's fine. They're not mean to us. One of them's the son, I would presume, of the main rooster, but he basically chases his dad around. It's kind of funny. So, and yes, they're too amorous. If you get that drift, catch my drift. so, but they crow all day. And it doesn't matter. Oh, it's only at sunrise. It happens all the time,
all the
even
time.
at 4. But we're in the woods, so it doesn't really matter. So, yep. But yeah, and I really was interested when SpaceX just had the latest NASA launch, which I showed my sons into that because this is the first time they've had some exciting news in several months. And as far as space goes, it's been a long time coming. So,
How old are your sons?
16 and 9.
Wow.
So there's a
Yeah,
little bit of,
those are good ages. My oldest
yeah.
one's 21. My younger is 17. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. 9-year-old was really interested in it, which is no surprise. And 16, he thought it was interesting, but he wants to go cybersecurity. He's not, the space doesn't interest him as much. So, but he likes the technology behind it. So
Cybersecurity is really big with space. Satellite communications,
exactly,
and they control them and that type of thing.
especially with a company like with SpaceX with their Starlink. We're really hoping on the launches of their satellites so we can get some decent internet connection up here.
They already have a sign up for people interested in their beta.
Done.
Okay.
When I saw the Facebook group that follows SpaceX and Starlink, I was on it the same day that someone posted the link. So, yeah, I'm excited about that whole situation too. And Musk is a pretty interesting CEO and visionary. So.
Yeah. Are you familiar with what SpaceX is doing in South Texas, in Boca Chica?
No.
So they're actually building this 100% reusable spacecraft that can carry 100 people into space at a time.
Wonderful.
And they hope to have it flying by the end of the year, test flights. And they're planning to build they're building a factory that could produce 2 of these a week. And then each one would be able to make up to like 3 flights a day. So, kind of like the whole scale of our access to space could radically change if they're successful in that.
Yeah, I was really nervous, cautiously nervous when they were taking up our 2 astronauts hoping that nothing went wrong. And just because, there's a lot of negative perception on something that would have happened with the 2, but it went well. I know they're all trained professionals, but you're still nervous, the human side.
And
so,
it's a commercial service that NASA's just buying rides on that you and I could also buy rides on.
That's pretty neat, actually.
Yeah, and there's 2 companies, Space Adventures and Axim Aerospace, have both bought dedicated SpaceX Crew Dragon missions. And the Axim Aerospace, apparently they have this thing with Tom Cruise where they're working on plans for him to actually go to the International Space Station and film a movie up there.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. It's realism, finally.
Indeed. And, now that we have another way to get to orbit besides the Soyuz, the Russians used to take space tourists to space, and now they're picking that back up again.
That would be pretty exhilarating, actually. To see that in my kids or our lifetime is pretty interesting, pretty intense and pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think the next 10 years are going to be to space what like the 1990s were to the internet.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, it's going to definitely bring some advancements that we're just and disrupt everything in a good way, because I think we need some good disruption with all the garbage going on.
So. I know. What do you think about the garbage going on? How does it end?
That's the one thing that I like, going from the data perspective of things, and we've been talking with some of my fellow instructors at the colleges. We're getting tired of the people that are operating off of the sensational news of things instead of running off data. And it'd be nice to see the respective science back, as far as trusting those professionals. But I don't know how long that's gonna, or when that's gonna happen. That's one of the things that we've kind of been discussing as we're being remote now. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's just we're kind of getting, we're working on a research project within to try to bring up about cognitive dissonance and data bias, and and trying to find out and identify some of the studies that are actually going to be utilized that are out there. So we're trying to work on something like that because we think there's a lot of lacking in that. And there's even, I don't know if you've heard of the American Statistical Association. It's like the ACM, but for statistics people. And there's been a lot of stuff going on about that and the utilization of machine learning with police and law enforcement agencies, of course, with the whole George Floyd incident and police brutality. So that'll be interesting to see how that comes out. But as far as how do I think about that stuff, we definitely need to talk about these things, especially the racial problems. I mean, now's the time. People need to quit trying to say all lives matter and all that stuff that just it disrespects when people are just trying to get their voices on. Okay, and then that's, I mean, I don't know if that's off topic or not, but I just think that's one thing that kind of annoys me. That attitude has got to go away.
Yeah,
So.
and it's amazing how we benefit from the success of previous generations and kind of the opportunities that they had and what have you.
True.
I'm reading a book right now as part of a book club called The Color of Law, and it talks
Okay.
about how after World War II, the VA loans were not allowed for non-white people. And then it talks about how these people came back from the war, got a house in, like, say, California or what have you, and then another group of people, they weren't able to purchase the house, what have you, and then that house appreciates. Now they have the money for university, and just kind of like the accumulation of wealth.
Yep. And how it was designed by the way it was because there's color of their skin or not. Yeah. That was called The Color of Law, you said?
Yeah, The
Sorry?
Color of Law. Yeah.
Okay. Check that one out. Because we both being of the primary, just the majority right now, and then we've kind of had the benefits and stuff. And it would be nice if people, 2020, it's just kind of surprising that we're still having this discussion, but it doesn't do my part by just trying to make sure my sons aren't to that stereotype.
But
just so they appreciate different viewpoints.
and we also have a benefit in being male. I know a lot of female people on Twitter and what have you get inundated with just random messages that,
Hit-ons? Oh.
yeah, that we totally get to avoid. I mean, I like.
Well, this is true. Hey, you're hot. Or swoon, yeah, the whistling, the whatever that's called. I don't really. It's not, what I mean. But I'm just. That's true. Two things, and just not respect. I'm kind of getting sick of all that. The stuff of people, just these decades, well, probably centuries of just disrespect for people. That it's like it's surprising, but I guess not surprising that we're still dealing with this. And I wouldn't understand because haven't been in that situation. So no one whistled at me, thank goodness, because I'm kind of homely looking. So, but we don't have that, and my wife might have gone through that and never discussed. Yeah, that's a good point. And so,
and I gotta think back to our T1 days when the internet was much more of a text-based medium.
Yeah.
Whenever you had like I forgot what you call it, NNTP, the news groups and what have you, and you had like text chat. I mean, there was like that joke that you could be a dog on the internet and nobody would have any clue about it because they're just like reading what you're, and that seemed like such a really golden time in the internet when
it did. It was, we both experienced that. It was a great time.
When you didn't have to worry about how you looked, your color, your gender. You just, how do you express your ideas in ASCII characters?
Yeah, and that's maybe that's you're right. You had that anonymity, I suppose, and not having to be judged by something. Yeah. So again, something that we don't have to worry about because we haven't had to experience that. So, and it's awkward to talk about, but it needs to be talked about. So definitely.
I thought the SpaceX launch was a big deal, a big accomplishment. But at the same token, we're having those riots in Minneapolis. And I couldn't help but notice that in all of the primary roles were white men. And I was just wondering if that
Oh,
struck you as well. I mean, like the astronauts were white men.
two of them.
You have, the NASA administrator, the president, the vice president, um,
Well,
what have you.
that's
So,
that probably makes sense. As far as the NASA employees and the SpaceX employees, the only part, yeah, I agree with you on that. The only part that was where I noticed that there was um, a hint of difference was when it was the 24-hour coverage on the NASA SpaceX channel, where you'd have the commentators, where occasionally you would have someone that was not, white. So as far as that goes, but that was really rare, and that was on the odd times. I don't know if that was on, is that a specific on purpose? I don't know, because I didn't do the scheduling. But the thing is, I did notice that too. And even on the space station, I don't know the makeup of who's actually on the space station, minus subtracting out our two astronauts. But isn't it pretty much Russian and another American, I
yeah,
believe?
I think so. I think,
Yeah, but I agree with you.
yeah.
We're not seeing what we should. Even at my own college, it's a private business college. Um, and we had a female president that stepped down at the end of or stepping down at the end of June to move on to another college, and but she's the second president in a row that we've had a female. But our faculty, I don't know the breakdown, but in the IT faculty we have 5 full-timers, and there's a gentleman, there's 1 2 3 white gentlemen, including myself, a white female, and then a Indian gentleman that's on is our statistics instructor. Now in the other areas, it's pretty low as far as diversity. I think that's kind of a norm of things, isn't it? Though. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the norm's the right term to use. Sorry, but it just seems like it is. So
Indeed. Well, I was wondering, did you know that NASA is planning to put people on the moon in 2024?
I thought there was a no. I did not actually. I saw some things online, but I didn't think it was that aggressive. No, I did not.
Yeah,
That's
last year,
great.
Vice President Pence had a meeting of the Space Council, and he announced that we're going to land people on the moon in 2024. If our current slate of contractors aren't up to it, we need to get new contracts that are. We need to, if our plan doesn't deliver that, we need to change the plan, not the mission. He's very stern about that last year.
Trying to treat it like a private enterprise. How is that going to work? I don't see how that would work, because 4 years, 4 years to be like the summer of 2024. Is that what they're looking at? Or do
Um,
they not specify?
well, it's funny. So last year, they essentially sidelined their head of the human spaceflight division, and they got a new guy in, Doug Laverio, and he had like a little countdown pin that he was wearing every day that had the number of days to the end of 2024.
Oh, gotcha.
And that sort of motivated me to do this project. Then the way that I
Okay.
did was, I was like, hey, I'm going to interview a person every day until the end of 2024, and it'd be like a little time capsule of what
Yeah,
people were thinking, what was going on, how they were viewing it, and that type of thing. So
I think it's
that's,
aggressive, but I don't understand. I think it would be a great thing to see again. Just I don't know technology. That's not my research area, but I don't know if is it even feasible. I don't, to get someone up there and to be sustained. I mean, outside of what you see on that love Netflix drama with essentially Michael Scott, right? With the Space Force, is this something that can be feasibly done? And that's a tight timeline, in my opinion.
yeah.
That's what you're kind of with this project, is to see what was accomplished in that time period, basically through your interviews, and to see.
Well, more importantly, people's um, awareness of it, and then also their perspective on it. I
Oh,
try to
okay.
interview a wide range of people. Before the whole COVID-19 thing, I was interviewing people at coffee shops and at
Yeah,
the mall, and at the airport. Now going up
yeah.
to random stranger in those places, asking them to talk is a little bit more difficult. But
It's probably uncomfortable for everyone.
yeah, my project may
Yeah,
not go much longer if I
yeah.
did that.
You might be complained. I hope we can do something like that, because I think we really need. I've been even talking about with some of my students with this. That was like one of the highlights, one of the few highlights of this year, outside of my 20th anniversary with my wife, but is the space. We were all four of us watching around my computer, watching the launch, and just kind of nervously launching. And I can't remember anything like that except when I was a kid watching the space shuttle launches. So I'm 47. So I'm just, I haven't seen that excitement like that in a long time. We used to watch them in school sometimes. And then of course the bad news of when the two space shuttles, it was two, right? Is it the Challenger and Columbia
That's correct.
and so, that's like, watching those were the emotional experiences, and this one was a positive one, and I think we needed that, and we do need that. But the bigger discussion has to come from the leadership, and between Congress and the president, our leadership is questionable. So, because they're all motivated by power and money, it seems, which is too bad. So, unlike the days of President Kennedy, with when he made the whole goal of having someone in, was it by 69 to the moon? So, or am I wrong?
Well, I mean, before this decade is out, to have a man safely put on the moon and return safely to Earth or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that type of inspiration would be nice to have again, but I hope things can change. Maybe in 2024 we'll have some good leadership.
But I mean, the
Anyway.
context was, the Russians or the USSR at that point were really, I mean, showing technological superiority in space in every measurable way. The first object to orbit the Earth, the first man in space, the first woman in space, the first communication satellite in space, the first, docking in space, and it goes on and on and on. And the goal here was to do something so big that we could show, yes, we're just as good as you. May have gotten a head start, but we could catch up and surpass you.
Well, we took a little bit of money away from our defense budget and put it into space programs. That would be a positive thing.
Oh, indeed. I mean, I think, whenever it comes to like policing the seas and the Navy and policing the airways, and making sure that those are safe, the military spending is great. But then you have like this huge amount of spending on maintaining our nuclear arsenals, which the whole purpose of that is to destroy the world. With some logic that if we can destroy it, you won't. I'm not sure.
Deterrence, right? It was the old Cold War mentality. Yeah, it would be nice, and then even if we could bring some of our troops out of areas that they've been there way too long, like some of these in Japan and Europe, it's like, do we really need to spending these resources and stuff? I don't know. I'm not, like I said, that's not my area. But it would be nice to see, going back to economics principles, to be seeing less, like, remember the gun and butter topic in economics? I don't know if you ever studied that, but like, if we produce this many guns, we can only produce this much butter or milk or something like that. I'd like to see it more on the stuff that could benefit us all. I mean, that's probably because I watched too much Star Trek, but
I mean, at least to have that vision, of, the hope. And I'm kind of curious, you say you think space is good from like inspiration standpoint. But us going back to the moon, I've talked to a lot of people. Of like the 192 people that I've interviewed, I would say maybe like 30, 35 people of them actually knew we were going back to the moon in 2024. And so the question is, how can something be inspiring if it's unknown?
Yeah, if you don't have the awareness of it, it's not gonna be able to inspire millions of people. So building bigger awareness, like through this type of a project, or through more positive NASA projects, like the between NASA and SpaceX, would be a way to do it. And maybe through the robotics programs that like through the what are the ones that they do with Dean Kamen?
First robotics.
Thank you. I just had a mental breakdown. That type of thing. Maybe that's holding to build a whole generation of scientists, engineers that might be more amped up into this if they brought more awareness to this. I don't know, something like that. It's just, but without the awareness and knowing it. I mean, I didn't know. I thought 2024 was just something they were joking about on that Netflix show for the Space Force, and I didn't really realize that. I've been distracted with doing stuff for college, and I get in my research area. Sometimes I get so blinded by just the work that we're doing that sometimes I don't realize these things. And that's honestly, that's why I probably wasn't one of the 35 people that knew. So,
Well, and another reason is now we have algorithms making choices about what we see and what we don't see.
that's true.
And I'm really big on space, so my Twitter and Facebook and Google News, is loaded with all the space stuff. But somebody else who doesn't have as intense an interest and hasn't actually expressed that interest in a way that the algorithms picked up on, um, probably wouldn't have these things.
That's true. And probably the only reason I knew about some of these about the actual launch is watching the different Facebook, or paying attention to the different Facebook things for like the SpaceX and Starlink, mainly the Starlink, because of being motivated by having a better internet connection. We have slow DSL, and we chose to live in the country. I get that, but it's just kind of interesting that we're one of the biggest economies in the world, and we don't. And I think we pale in comparison to like the throughput and stuff for internet connections than like the South Korea does. Now, South Korea is more urbanized with Seoul, and the population's probably clustered in certain areas, but in this country, and we still don't have it available for the kids that are out here, for the high speeds and stuff. So it's just kind of surprising. But I've seen some of those, and it's probably because of, like you said, the algorithm saying, oh, he likes this, and he likes Elon Musk quotes, or he likes this, So I see that, and that stuff gets me interested too with the data. So,
And
go ahead.
You were talking about cognitive bias and cognitive dissonance. And I was just thinking that these algorithms probably allow for people to exist in whatever world they want to exist in, and it becomes continuously self-reinforcing.
It does. We've seen that with, and I've had to explain that. Some of the faculty and I have discussed that with working with the students and trying to get them to understand that this happens. We're in one of the discussions that's been lately is like how much bias is built into machine learning in these algorithms. So that brings up a good point too, and so it would be, if it would be nice if we could get out of our bubbles, our areas, and to see some things like this. It's like I said, I try to be mentally positive a lot, and 2020 has been one of those, has been probably the moment in our lives that is probably like what happened to those people that were involved in different other historical situations, like the ones in World War II, where people were worried about toilet paper shortages this year because people were panic buying, but think about those in World War II where they had shortages and rationing because of a world war. And I'm not sure if there was anything else since that. That's our moment, is this, not the toilet paper shortage, but having to deal with this mass disruption like this. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I wonder what the future is of our cities, in the sense that, if we have high-speed internet access all over the United States with like 1 gigabit, less than like 20 millisecond delay times.
Right.
If land out in the country is cheaper, and you could order anything on Amazon and get it delivered to your house within a couple of days, and the cities are a source of disease and a source of unrest and all these things. I mean, why do people stay in cities? I mean, like, doesn't this cause the cities to disappear?
It might, and it might be going to that point where we'll have more. Maybe we'll have, like we did in in Michigan during the 60s, 67 race riots that went on. We had I don't know what the term is, but we had a spreading of the white
White flight.
Thank you. White flight going from Detroit itself to the suburbs. And Michigan it's not unique, obviously, like that, but we're starting to see is it gentrification, which is when people are coming back in from the suburbs and then displacing minorities in an urban setting. Think of like Harlem in New York, where people, the hipsters were coming back in or whatever, and they were trying to displacing those that were living there because then the people couldn't live there because they couldn't afford it. So it's interesting how it's cycled back and forth, and we'll see how that happens. I don't know what's going to happen I would think that more people are going to move out and maybe see that being socially distanced isn't such a bad thing. Being more self-reliant. We in addition to having our chickens, we built ourselves a nice like 4 foot by 8 foot raised bed garden for our food sources. Our school district, which is a rural district, did a unique thing so that the kids were still fed, which is pretty sad that you have to worry about kids relying on school systems to be fed, but that's just a way of life, right? Because people are without jobs or people don't have the resources like you and I do. And so they distribute food and they don't even ask for IDs. They just want to, if you have kids 18 or younger in the household, we'll provide for them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can come and pick up the, like lunches and breakfasts, and whether you're rich or poor, and they just want to make sure the kids are taken care of. And they did it by the bus. They would actually use the bus system and deliver it to people's houses. They'd get the packets out to people's houses that way because we're spread out so much in this district. So a lot of human innovation coming out from the smallest and poorest of rural districts to the urban areas and stuff that I've seen is pretty interesting. And that was actually bringing hope and happiness, because my younger son is on the a higher level functioning on the autism spectrum. And so the normalcy and schedule is an important thing for someone on the spectrum. Okay. So, and I don't know how familiar you are with, or if you know anyone that's, on the spectrum or not, but it was just to him to be able to get his packets for school. He loves math. Imagine that. And so he was able to see that. Now if we go and pick up the stuff, he can go and wave to his teacher. The teachers will volunteer and do this stuff, but he's freaked out by the masks still, which he's only 9. So he thinks it's weird. So, but anyway, I don't know. I think I just did one of my lectures where I went off on another tangent. So
No, it's wonderful, and I think we call it, I guess, neurodiversity. You have people who have autism and other types
yeah,
of, and we all have our own peculiarities, and they extend in different directions. But I think they give us unique perspective on
yeah,
life and things. And
yeah.
the more that we could have more unique perspectives and connect that with other people, I think the more potential there is for discovery.
Exactly. And if we would listen to each other and not worry about, well, you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're progressive, you're liberal, the more this finger pointing and showing, we have to understand we are different, but if we could just understand and respect the differences, we might be able to move on, make some more discovery, and not waste our time on hating each other. I know that
Oh,
sounds.
indeed, and I tried that with this project as well. I've had some people on here saying that if we go on to the moon in 2024, it'd be our first time to the moon.
Oh.
Apollo deniers. So I try not to be judgmental.
No, seriously.
Yeah, I try not to be judgmental, but kind of probe into how'd you come about that conclusion, and why do you think
Yeah.
that, and what would it take for you to reconsider your position, and what would it take to convince other people that you're right? There's uh, kind of pressing on these types of facts as well, and maybe keep an open mind. It's just
Sure.
everything about the scale and um, the number of people involved, and the fact that the Russians wouldn't idly sit by and let us pull off such a scam like that. I think
Right.
kind of, but um, I was, and about that unique perspective, we all live in a 1G gravity field. We all essentially have a 1 atmosphere type of pressure on us. We all have a 24-hour day. Um,
Yeah.
and, I wonder how much of this commonality has made us as a group kind of blind to certain things, that whenever we start having people born in 1/6 gravity and growing up with 28-day and who have to always live in a bubble, are people who've been born on a 1/3 gravity place with like a zero point 0.1 atmosphere thing. How will just having those different life experiences cause the perspective to shift and allow for them to see things and be blind to things that in a different way than we are?
Yeah. That would, well, I would hope that people would actually take that into consideration and maybe see, wow, there really is truly something different like that, and use that in the perspective to grow, because, and that would be, maybe that's something that we'll have to do just to figure this out, and because it seems like we're just spinning our wheels doing nothing positive, especially 2020. I know I keep this up, but it seems just like uh, this is like, you see all the memes probably on Facebook and Twitter of the, like, we know what's coming in July. There was murder hornets, which really weren't nothing. So, can you hold on one second? I got
Sure thing.
Sorry, guy was Pope. So anyway, I don't know where we were, but it's interesting times.
Indeed. So how does space rate in your view of the world? I mean, is it like a luxury that's sort of like a baseball stadium, or a kind of like a nice thing that we do to inspire things? Or do you see like the future of humanity and the future um, being actually occupying like cities on Mars and moon bases and bases on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and we're sending like these huge ships out to other star systems that take hundreds of years to get there. I mean, like those are like the two extremes. I guess you even have one little further over extreme, which is we have all these problems on Earth. Why are we even spending stuff on space? Would be kind of a little bit farther. But like, how does it fit in your view of the future?
I probably think of it from, I don't think of it as a luxury. I think of it as a more of like a survival thing and advancement of science and engineering. So I look at it as a way for hope, a hope for like ensuring that, there's only so many finite resources on our planet right now, and the way we're treating it and we're treating each other. I think we need to explore this so that we can basically advance to the next level, so that we can move our people and our race over into a way that is, like I said, advancing the science, so we can just make sure we can last longer than the next 100 or 200 years. And as far as I know, I would think that something like that would be exciting, as far as that hope. I mean, it's not going to, something like that, we don't know what's going to happen by the time I'm 80, but it would be nice to see us going in a direction like that. Seems like we haven't been doing much as far as NASA and space exploration in the past few decades. I mean, for me, and maybe that's just because I don't spend as much time, in it and being excited about it as you are, passionate about it. And so it would be a great thing, I think, for us to do, to accelerate some of the scientific development, so that my kids could actually enjoy something like that, or their grandkids, and then move past the flat Earth we are living on. Kidding, flat Earth.
I know that's another really funny thing. I mean, I think it highlights the idea that the way to get attention is just say something so out there with a lot of believability, and you could get it.
Exactly. I've never questioned the Apollo missions. I have this trust on some things. I'm skeptical on some things. I'm not going to share, like as far as that goes, but as far as that stuff, I've never had a reason to believe that they just staged it in the desert somewhere, something like that. I mean, I did watch X-Files. I didn't do it in a way that I was that skeptical of that. I think it's something that's that we can all benefit from as a species. Shouldn't have said race. I meant species, I suppose. So.
Um,
Yeah.
so the two people I remember talking to that had some questions about the landing. They both kind of focused on how unreal the pictures looked on the moon. So.
Oh, okay. Again, maybe it's just because I'm one of the old school. I trust, still have some trust left, and just maybe the little boy, little child curiosity was I thought, why would they fake it? I don't know. I know MythBusters did a whole thing about trying to fake those pictures, I believe, a few years ago and stuff. But I try not to get into the conspiracy theories as far as that goes. I just like to try to trust that they're doing that. I'm sure there's some people that denied that that the SpaceX launch actually even happened. Probably, I would hope not, but I'm sure there's some people out there that probably doubted that we actually even have a space station.
Even though you can see it with a telescope going by. Yeah. So.
But that's fake. Anyway, yeah, I know. It goes back to confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance and all that stuff where people believe what they want to believe, and if they tell themselves a lie enough times, what happens? They believe it.
Indeed. And
I
that's
still like it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and that's true with anything from, this is true or that's true about, landing on the moon, or, the truth about the vaccines for coronavirus. But it's also true when it comes to our own capabilities in terms of, can I go start a business that's successful? Am I smart enough? Can I learn? A lot of people are telling themselves negative things in those areas too,
Yep.
and they become equally true for those people.
In their realities, they do. Especially, and maybe that's part of their environment they were raised into, where they were told and weren't encouraged. I'm not saying give them out, just say you can do whatever you want as far as that goes, but not giving them the encouragement to help nurture and grow them as human beings. We all try to be good as parents to try to give the opportunities, but as much as we can. But I think some people that maybe have that, I don't know if that's a psychological thing where they were told, no, you can't do this. My wife was told from this group when she was in high school that she wouldn't amount to anything, and she wasn't good enough for science because she was a girl. And she's 35, and she went out to do geological engineering at it's Michigan Tech University, which I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Michigan Technological University, but it's in our Upper Peninsula, and it's all engineering, science, and computers. So she went there, proved them wrong, and then she worked in the oil field. That's how we ended up in Texas for a few years. And so, that's good. Now she teaches math, and tries to inspire the students of today and stuff. So, I don't
really awesome.
I think it has, yeah. And so I see that's another thing. Going back on perspective, I didn't have anyone. I had a good set of parents that helped me with the encouragement and stuff like that. As far as to help me and gave me the opportunity to fail and to change things around. So but not everyone has that. I understand. So.
Well, the last question I usually ask people is, if it was safe and affordable, would you go into space?
I probably would have some. In the end, yes, I would probably have some doubts at first until it's like I buy something new. I want to someone else test it out first, but maybe eventually I would. Yeah, yep. If it became affordable and mainstream enough, it would be something that would be pretty interesting to be able to go on to do a traveling like that. Yeah, I think so.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time, and it was great to catch up with you. And hopefully someday after this coronavirus thing, I'll go up to Michigan, or you come back to Houston.
Yeah, that would be great. Sounds good, sir. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Well, you have a good rest of your day then.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.